Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Crystal, what's on the show today?
We have a crazy show today. You've been working hard. Interviews with both General Petraeus and also Senator Josh Hawley. We've also got some breaking news regarding Mayor Pete and questionable New York Times reporting that illustrates some media bias. All of that and more today on Rising. All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, the New York Times yesterday admitted an error in a pivotal story about Justice Brett Kavanaugh, which led to several Democratic candidates to call for his impeachment. The botched story drew harsh criticism from the right and the left. It's just the latest in a series of embarrassing mistakes for the so-called paper of record. The error began Sunday when the paper published a book excerpt from two of its reporters, Robin Pogrom and Kate Kelly, who are authors of a new book on Kavanaugh. The paper alleged to have found a sexual misconduct allegation against Kavanaugh while he was a student at Yale University. The paper purported to have witnesses and even said congressional investigators had been made aware of the claim at the time of the Kavanaugh hearing. There's just one problem, though. Until Federalist journalist Molly Hemingway got her hands on a copy of the book, nobody knew the book itself noted that the alleged victim did not recall the incident in question. In other words, some people are saying something happened between two people. The two people involved in the incident either don't recall it or outright deny that it ever happened. That detail wasn't added until Tuesday morning, however, when the damage was done. By that time, Senators Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and others called for Kavanaugh to be impeached for lying to Congress about an incident that, if not is outright false, at the very least has some serious doubt around it. I'm sure some of you probably want to see Justice Kavanaugh removed from the bench, but the key thing to realize here is how much of a disservice the New York Times has done all of us by handling of this report. The biggest and the most obvious form of media bias in the mainstream media is about story selection and about story response. Can you imagine if the New York Times had made a similar error about a Democratic Supreme Court justice? Dean Baquet would once again have to haul himself in front of a town hall of his reporters in order to explain how such a terrible error happened, how he will ensure such an incident never happens again. All of you who are weary of media bias should be concerned about this incident. Just think about the next time the New York Times gets something obviously wrong about Bernie Sanders or any other progressive. They could care less what you think. As long as they still get booked on MSNBC, they talk to the same party insiders, protect their status inside elite circles within New York and Washington, they don't care. The New York Times demonstrates that many of the organizations tasked with exposing those in power have become co-equal branches of the powerful, and they are overlording elites intent on pushing this country in a singular direction. What too many of my friends on the right don't understand is that these institutions aren't uniformly left. They're a specific type of Democrat. They're an ally of the woke warrior and not the class warrior. I want to emphasize again, nobody at the New York Times or the Washington Post ever got a memo telling them to write a story a certain way. But that's not how media bias actually works. Only the people who already subscribe to a certain ideology would ever get hired at these institutions. And if you happen to go against the grain, when you would never be allowed to work there in the first place. Any candidate or cause that dares question the class consensus gets targeted and becomes a victim of unfortunate errors and other debacles. In the meantime, our race to the bottom in the media continues at an ever faster pace. And Crystal, I wanted to make it something that just didn't have to do with Justice Kavanaugh here, because I think that is a partisan thing that mostly people on the right care about. But it's just a great illustration of how over and over again that the Times just does not care, A, what conservatives think, but they don't care what progressives think either. No. They don't care what people who are trying to challenge their worldview think about the world, and they will not be responsive whenever they mess something up.
Yeah, I mean, look, for the record, I think there are deeply problematic questions about the way the whole Kavanaugh confirmation hearings were handled, about the incredibly truncated way that the FBI investigation was unfurled, et cetera.
And that's fine.
Putting that aside,
that's a debate, right?
I think your point about what a disservice this does to the entire conversation is so true and so well taken. And frankly, I feel bad for the authors of this book who, look, I haven't read the book, but by all accounts, were very careful in their reporting and included that the person involved said that she didn't recall the incident. So now their whole book and all their work is undermined by this error of the New York Times.
Yeah. I mean, they do this over and over again, and then they refuse to apologize, and then they end up damaging people's... I mean, look, they literally influence the national discourse. How many people actually saw the correction? I have no idea. Probably not that many. It's pretty much, unless you consume right-wing media or you watch the show, you're not going to see it.
Right.
MSNBC maybe donates, 2 minutes of their airtime. This is what, the amount, what they show you and what they don't show you is just as important. In fact, I think it's more important what they don't show you.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's exactly right.
And all of us should be concerned.